Good evening, Canes fans. Peter Ariz here with CanesInsight.com. And it's a big night tonight as the 2025 Hurricanes schedule is released. We'll be going, if you're listening to us on replay, again, appreciate everyone who's joining us live right now. And if you're listening to us on audio after the live, we're going one by one here as the schedule is released by the ACC. There's a show right now on the ACC network where they are releasing week by week here what the schedule is going to be. So we'll have the instant analysis of what this thing looks like, how it's broken down. D-Money is going to be joining me very shortly here in just a few minutes. He's wrapping up with the kids at baseball practice, so he'll be on here soon. So thank you all for joining us tonight here on Canes Insight. We're kind of going side by side here with the ACC Network's reveal. So excited to get into this thing. Obviously, the transfer portal, a lot of these teams, it's going to be tough to judge what they looked like last season compared to what they're going to look like this next season. So many moving parts, but D and I have been covering the transfer portal across the country on group chat, Football Live. So we have a pretty good idea, I think, of how things are laid out, but continue to deep dive into it this offseason with you guys on Canes Insight. So we'll start right off the bat because week one has already been announced here. And we're going to get everyone in this live. Like this video, guys. Please subscribe to the channel. This is the Hurricanes 2025 schedule reveal. Again, if you're just joining us, we're going to go one by one here as the ACC releases week by week here what the schedule is. But we do know that week one here for Miami is going to be Sunday, August 31st against Notre Dame. So the team that just made an appearance in the national championship with Marcus Freeman at head coach. They're going to be coming to Hard Rock, and we all remember what happened the last time Notre Dame came to Hard Rock. It was a very, very memorable night, probably the best game for the Hurricanes in Hard Rock Stadium since they moved there, in 2007, 2008. And to me, this is going to be such a huge hyped up thing all off season. The rivalry of the past is going to be, strung along here a certain way, but we understand these are two completely different teams than what we saw last year. Notre Dame going to have a new quarterback. Does not look like they're going into the portal. Riley Leonard, he's headed to the next level, and their identity was a very disciplined football team defensively. Al Golden, a defensive coordinator. It would have been fun to see him back here, which they played here in the playoff, but obviously coaching against Miami. He's going to the Bengals. So a lot of moving pieces for them, multiple starters or guys who started a lot of games on the offensive line, I should say, out the door, but they're loaded there. So a lot of moving parts for Notre Dame, but bringing a lot back. Have added some good pieces in the portal. Quarterback is the big question for them. Without a doubt, that's going to be the biggest thing that we need to see what happens there. Marcus Freeman has been very adamant at this point that they're not going to go into the portal for a quarterback. Steve Angeli, he played a bit in the playoff there when Riley Leonard came out with injury. He looked solid. He looks like probably the favorite to win that job, but we'll see what happens here over the course of spring practice. Notre Dame, it's going to be, like I said, guys, it's fun to have these week one matchups. We saw against Florida what that did for Miami in terms of, I think really having a clean offseason, really having a motivated offseason gives the guys something to look forward to. You shouldn't need that week one, but it's just something extra for the guys to circle on the calendar. As the ACC Network show, the ACC Huddle show here is getting started. I have it on the TV next to me here in this room. So again, as it's announced, we are going to put up the schedule here, we already know that week 1, as it was announced last week, is going to be Notre Dame coming to Hard Rock Stadium Sunday, August 31st. So that's week 1. We're getting almost 1,000 in here. So remember, guys, like this video, subscribe to the channel. As always, this show is brought to you by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. We will have D-Money joining us here shortly as well, so we can break down, instantly analyze what these matchups look like. Again, so many moving parts with the transfer portal, and not only Miami's team changing, but these other teams as well. And then for Miami, you're going to have a completely new identity. You would expect no Cam Ward, goes without saying, but defensively, you need to take a huge step, bring in a new defensive coordinator here, Corey Heatherman, and everyone's just excited to see what it's going to look like. And obviously, Canes fans want to see a disciplined product defensively. They're not looking for something too crazy, but you're playing a team in Notre Dame right off the bat that you understand they're going to have a new quarterback as well, but they're probably going to limit the mistakes they make early season. We'll see what happens, right? But you look at this, you look at how this Miami team has to come into early season game against the Notre Dame, and the game plan has to be fundamentally sound. Don't beat yourself with penalties. Don't beat yourself with turnovers, because you know that that's the identity that Notre Dame is going to bring. And it took them all the way to the championship this year. So Mark Richt on the ACC show right now, they're showing, I don't have the audio on, but they're showing the highlights as Richt is talking about the Notre Dame at Miami game. He's got a big smile on his face. Obviously, they're talking about the last time that Notre Dame came to Miami. So that's going to be 7:30 Eastern on ABC, Sunday night game. Spotlight opening weekend of college football. Man, that's going to be really, really fun. And right now, I think from what we saw the other day, Miami is opening at like a 2.5-point underdog in that one, which, you know, sounds about right. A lot of question marks, a lot of turnover for Miami. Notre Dame, the road team, but coming off a national championship berth. And yes, there's a new quarterback for them, but it's not like the quarterback was the reason that they were there. He was part of their success. I don't want to take anything away from them, but I think people are banking on whoever they replace Riley Leonard with maybe being able to stretch the field with his arm a little bit more. Riley Leonard gave you a lot in the power run game and just his ability to move the chains. But I think Angeli or whoever comes in has the ceiling to potentially be a little bit more dangerous vertically through the air. Cat 5 says, get that defense right. Yeah, I think that's what everyone is obviously hoping for here, and would go a long way, because you can't expect to have the number 1 offense in the country like you had with Cam Ward. I expect this to hopefully be a top 20 offense, as it's interesting because a lot of metrics the year before Cam Ward had Miami's offense in terms of different yardage metrics and things like that as a top 25 offense, even with Tyler Van Dyke losing his confidence and having the season that he had. So you can't expect this to be the number 1 offense, but with a healthy Carson Beck, with that offensive line, with that run game, you can expect it to be a very, solid unit offensively with some young playmakers. So they have week 2 up now here, and let's see if they, I don't think they have, here it is. So yes, here it is. So Miami week 2 will have Bethune-Cookman, and that is Saturday, September 6th. Bethune-Cookman comes to Hard Rock Stadium. So again, we know who Miami's non-conference opponents are already. We are putting dates to these games, and week 3, we have week 3 ready, and that is USF comes to Hard Rock Stadium. So that is the home and home that Miami went to Tampa this year for. So just recapping right now, for those of you who are just joining us live, week 1, Notre Dame at Hard Rock Stadium. We knew that one. We've known that one for a little bit. Week 2, Bethune-Cookman comes to town. So that's Miami's, of course, their FCS opponent on the schedule. Week 3, USF comes to town. So the USF Bulls will be coming back to Miami here. And then week 4 here, as it's a highly anticipated one as well. The Florida Gators come to Hard Rock Stadium on September 20th. So you are looking at this schedule, having Notre Dame week 1, Bethune-Cookman week 2, USF week 3, and then the Florida Gators. As we saw last year, Miami went to Gainesville, and the Canes get them back in Hard Rock for the first time since, I believe, 2013, when, of course, that was the Al Golden coach team. Tracy Howard had the interception in that game. Philip Dorsett, I want to say, had a touchdown in that one. So Miami wins that one. That was the Tyreek McCord game-sealing play at the end of the game there. So the Florida Gators coming to Hard Rock Stadium Saturday, September 20th. And that would wrap up Miami's non-conference schedule there. Week 5 for Miami, as again, we're mirroring the ACC network TV show right now, but we're focusing just on Miami. Miami will have a bye week. And this is going to be an interesting part of the schedule coming up here as you get into ACC play. As CF Kane fan notes, first 4 games at home. So yes, Miami's first 4 games are at home. For everyone who's joining us now, remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. This is the Canes Insight podcast. This is the Canes Insight Miami Hurricanes 2025 schedule reveal. And just going down the line here, week 1, Miami has Notre Dame coming to Hard Rock Stadium. This is the national championship, of course, birth fighting Irish from this past season. And they are coming to Hard Rock Stadium with a new quarterback, but a very, very solid team, expected to be a top 5 team preseason, top 10 team preseason, without a doubt. Miami looking like early 2.5-point underdogs in that one. Then Bethune-Cookman comes to Hard Rock the following week. USF comes to Hard Rock the week after that. So you have your first 3 games there at home, and then the Florida Gators round out the schedule there. And we have a special guest here ready to join us on the Canes Insight schedule reveal show. And that, of course, is D Money. D, good evening. How you doing?
What's up, everybody? Oh,
right. What's on? How we doing?
Doing well, man. I don't know if you can kind of adjust yourself a little bit closer to the camera here, if possible.
Yep, here we go.
There we go.
Look at that, you got the nice graphic there.
Yeah, it's a little big there, but there we go. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Making the magic happen live. So yeah, so we've, again, like if you're just joining us now, everyone, and D Money on with us live, we are up to week 5 here, which is the bye week for Miami. And then we're going to wait here to see what the remainder of the or at least weeks 6 through 9, which is going to be coming up next here on the AC Network show. But D, your early thoughts on weeks 1 through 4 here, then the bye week, week 5.
Yeah, I mean, look, the non-conference is obviously the interesting part of the schedule, along with the fact that we got all the home games. You have Notre Dame and Florida. That's really what excites you. I think in this 12-game playoff or 12-team playoff era, these non-conference games, to me, yes, they're very difficult, but when you don't have to go undefeated or only 1 loss to make the playoff, I think they're actually very good, because the ACC path, that has nothing to do with the non-conference. What the non-conference allows you to do is to potentially win a game against Notre Dame, win a game against Florida, and now you're nationally relevant right out the top. And it helps you down the line when it comes to playoff selection if the ACC path doesn't work out your way. So it can only help you. I don't think it's going to really hurt you, right? The ACC path. We should have won it last year. Didn't happen. I don't think the ACC is that much better this year, quite frankly. So yes, it makes the schedule tougher as a whole, but we got to look at it differently when it's not, hey, you got to win all your games, or you can only lose one game to make the playoff. That's out. That's gone. It's really about win the ACC and get in, or make your resume good enough to get in. And these two games give you an opportunity for the resume.
And it was already previously announced, and we have it now as well on the show, but Saturday, October 4th at Florida State. So Miami traveling to Tallahassee here, and what we expect to be a much improved Florida State team.
Yeah, this is a dangerous game. So FSU, with all their changes, the best way I can describe it is I don't think that they're going to be, particularly good, in that they've made changes with the ceiling to win the ACC or compete for the playoff. I don't see that from like a long-term standpoint. I do think they've made changes to make them good enough to beat, a Miami or a Florida or some of their rivals. They're going to be a tough out because of the style they play with that hurry up, no huddle, a quarterback that can run, and then enough solid pieces, veteran pieces on the offensive line where they're not just a catastrophe like they were last year up front. So I'm glad that, this is, first of all, it's very weird, right, to have a bye, and then the game against UF, or sorry, so then
FSU.
The bye, then get the game against FSU. We'll see what the next bye is. Here, I think having a bye before FSU for this style of offense is absolutely critical. There you go. So,
yeah, it's been announced here that Miami has a FSU sandwich between two bye weeks here, and a really weird part of the schedule.
Yeah, so I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit. So with the bye before FSU, you're able to prepare for this unusual offense, which I think is very helpful, and you can recover from what's going to be a very intense game against Florida. The second bye is so bizarre, but you don't have a normal schedule here with all the home games, with the Notre Dame, UF, and FSU all before October, first week of October. It's an unusual schedule, and I think the biggest anomaly is these sandwich buys, which I can never remember seeing as long as I've been watching Maybe I'm wrong. Someone in the comments can remind me, but that's bizarre, and at least leads to a very daunting stretch of consecutive games here on the back end.
As we wait for week 8 to be revealed, very interesting. This Saturday, October 4th at Florida State is very early for Florida State, Miami, but Clemson goes to North Carolina that same week. So a couple huge ACC matchups early in the season there, October 4th, as we are now getting the week 8 matchup revealed. And that is the Louisville Cardinals, and they're coming to Miami. That's a Friday night game. That should be a cool atmosphere.
Yeah, and look, I'm not saying, you don't really want these buys sandwiched like that, but if you were going to have buys before particular games, FSU with a kind of unusual offense, and then Louisville with not a particularly unusual offense, but a very good offense, at least you have time to prepare for both of those defensively. That's the one thing I could say. I don't love how the buys are sandwiched, but I like the teams that the buys are before, if that makes sense, because you just want time to prepare defensively and get ready. Friday game should be an intense atmosphere.
Saturday, October 25th, Stanford comes to Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah, there's a Stanford team that is way down, not what we're used to seeing. They can beat you. They're physical enough and smart enough to beat you, but home game, that's a game Miami has to win. That's not one that they can just say, hey, ACC's tough. You lose some that you don't expect to lose. That's a game Miami has to win when you consider all the tough games that they've already played by this point. Notre Dame, Florida, Florida State, Louisville. This is a game Miami has to win.
Yeah,
and Stanford's making the trip.
Right. It's not David Shaw's Stanford.
No, not at all. They just lost their quarterback to Auburn, where he might be a backup. just to show you kind of where they're at. Their starting quarterback left to Auburn to potentially be the backup quarterback, potentially be the third string quarterback, really. So they got a lot of work to do. And the fact that they have to make that trip, I think, is very beneficial to Miami. We saw the reverse last year against Cal.
So another schedule oddity worth noting here, D, is that Miami does not leave the state of Florida until what would be November here, as you're on October 25th and Miami has not left the state.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Now, the flip side of it is we know how it's going to end, and that's where Miami's Miami's usually better early as opposed to later, but these are going to be some hot games for their opponents. So, Miami's going to have to be conditioned and ready to wear teams out. We've seen that certainly with, I know the Miami Dolphins always like to get those home games early so they can work these guys out in the heat. But the flip side is Miami's going to be traveling to some cold places here as you get into the later part of the season. And this is a part of the season where Miami has typically faltered. So they're going to be set up to prove that they're a different team now.
So we are going to a commercial break on the ACC Network schedule release show. And after that, they'll be going into November here. But just to recap that quick stretch that we just spoke about, Miami opens ACC play at Florida State. Then you have a bye week. Then you have Louisville at home and Stanford at home. So Florida State, Louisville, and Stanford are your first three ACC games.
Yeah, and it's the fact you're not going to Stanford is a plus. The fact that you have a bye before Florida is a plus. The fact you have a bye before Louisville is a plus. So I think this whole part of the schedule is difficult because of some of the non-conference games, but it's set up for success early. The problem is, we all know just by the way this is falling, is that it's setting up a lot of consecutive games down the stretch, a lot of road games theoretically in the cold down the stretch, and during a time period where Miami typically does worse than they do in the beginning. It hasn't been great, period for the past 2 decades, but they're really, really bad at the end compared to the beginning. So this is a stretch Miami needs to pile up quality wins.
And as Cat 5 notes, you have Notre Dame, Florida, and Florida State all in the same season. So it really kind of takes you back to the old days.
Yeah, and look, if one thing you will say is with the early home games, the early games in Florida, if you're Carson Beck, somebody who, it's not like he's not afraid of road games or tough environments. This guy's been in the toughest environments in football. He's a veteran. But in terms of getting your chemistry, right, probably a little easier to get your chemistry at home in nice conditions. It might be hot, but it's not going to be, freezing, snowy, windy, should be relatively nice conditions to throw the football. So for a guy who's going to miss a lot of time here, probably not going to throw in spring at all. So he'll have the summer to work with the receivers, but it's going to be probably a little bit behind what you saw with Cam Ward, where he came out on fire. Good chance for him to get on point at home, or at the minimum in warm conditions before this stretch where he's going to be going on the road, playing big games in the cold, where offense is a little tougher.
So if you're just joining us right now, we are, as the ACC Network reveals the schedule week by week here, we are revealing the schedule as well for the Miami Hurricanes. Just recapping here, week 1, Miami has Notre Dame at home. Week 2, Bethune-Cookman at home. Week 3, USF at home. Then you have the Florida Gators at home on Saturday, September 20th to round out the non-conference schedule. Really weird part of the schedule here is then Miami gets a bye week, then at Florida State to open ACC play, then another bye week. So you have 2 bye weeks that sandwich that Florida State game. Louisville, Stanford at home, and as has just been revealed here, Miami goes to SMU on November 1st, their first game outside of the state of Florida in the 2025 season. And boy, is it a big one.
Yeah, this could be deciding who goes to the ACC championship. So absolutely enormous. November has been the month that has bedeviled the Miami Hurricanes for 2 decades. This year probably being as bad as any. So you talk about games that could make or break Miami in the ACC. First day of November, the month that we're concerned about, on the road. Dallas will be a little cold that time. It's not going to be Pittsburgh, but it's not going to be Miami. So, the one thing I will say is at this point, you played USF, you've played Florida State, now you're playing SMU. You're a little used to the pace by now, right? You've played 2 offenses that like to play at that faster pace, and you've practiced that for 2 weeks, so you're ready for it.
Then the following week, as has just been revealed, Syracuse comes to town, and Miami going to have an opportunity to avenge that loss from this past season.
Yeah, and we're talking about November, right, where the ACC hopes typically have died for the Miami Hurricanes. These are 2 games that have major, major implications in the ACC. Syracuse with Ricky Collins, a lot of rebuilding to do in terms of their passing game, which was so prolific last year. You lose Kyle McCord, you lose Aronde Gas, and you lose Weeks. You still have Trevor Pena, who's very effective. Lot of work to do for them, but they're recruiting at a high level. They beat you last time, so they got confidence. We'll see. Again, my themes here are the fact that November, it feels like this is going to be a huge, huge month for Mario Cristobal and his tenure in Miami. Because look, maybe you start off slow and the thrill is gone from the season, but typically Mario has his team ready to play big games. I have a feeling we're gonna have some good moments here in the beginning, and it's going to come down to November.
Saturday, November 15th, NC State at home, and that's going to be senior day for Miami. It's been a few years since Miami's played NC State. I feel like, was that like COVID years with the Eric King?
No, they played them the year TVDs threw all the picks, 2023.
Yes.
Yeah.
The year before this one, yes.
We had a chance to score here on the goal line, ended up losing that ball game. NC State's a team that's lost a lot to the portal, Pete. We've covered it on Group Chat Sports, which I don't know if you've done the plug for that yet. So, by the way, shout out. Do we do the Anjar and Levine plug? I was late.
I did early, but I didn't do the full one, so I was going to set you up for it.
As good as it deserves. Did you give it?
No, I definitely didn't. And we have more on live. We have almost 3,000 on with us live now, so it'll get the shine it deserves now.
There you go, Anjar and Levine. If you or someone you care about injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anjar and Levine. Here we go. Another just massive ACC game here in November.
This one, freezing. This is a sickening game. You can't even call this. This is like mega trap. You can't even call it a trap before the season starts, but this is just going to be a tough game.
Here's what I'll say about this one and NC State. The quarterbacks are back, right? You have CJ Bailey back for NC State. You got Drones back for Virginia Tech. Both those guys, very dangerous dual threat quarterbacks with size, with good poise that can hurt you. These 2 teams lost a lot in the portal, an unusual amount, a lot more than they got back. So the talent disparity should be there. Now, look, we've seen that not matter a million times. So I understand that, but these are not teams that are peaking. Truthfully, NC State and Virginia Tech both look like they were going to have good years this past year and were disappointing. But going into next year, they're going to be teams with a lot of doubt because Virginia Tech lost, key pieces of their secondary to LSU, Notre Dame, starting caliber players, right? They really didn't bring back much. And then NC State losing to USC, some of their who else did they lose? Indiana took one of their safe. These defensive backfields were pillaged. And then this one, talk about cold after Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and this is a game that Miami's ended the season with before on multiple occasions. Obviously, we remember the one the Friday after Thanksgiving, the year that Miami lost to Clemson in the ACC Championship 2017. Believe there was one where Stacey Coley had like 3 touchdowns as a freshman, I want to say.
Talk about Pitt, by the way, for the people listening on the audio.
Yeah, for Pitt. So that's Miami's last game here, but reminiscent to having it going to Syracuse at the end of last season.
Yeah, except it's outdoors. But you go, at Virginia Tech, at Pittsburgh, at the coldest times of the schedule. So the good news is the way Miami plays football fits with that style of play, right? This is not a high-flying Miami team of the past. I mean, even last year, you had a high-flying team, but you did have the ability to run the football with power. I expect that to continue this year. So, we will see how it looks at the end of the season when it's really challenged. But again, this is a consistent theme with the ACC. These teams are all losing a lot, right? Forget about recruiting. We know recruiting has been tough at the ACC level, but just from a portal standpoint, none of these teams are really getting that much better. You look at Pitt. You lose Chief Borders, Sincere Edwards up front. You lose an edge player that you like. They've lost guys that they could use, and they haven't really, to me, brought in impact talent through the portal. Virginia Tech and NC State more than Pitt. Pitt's basically what they are, but NC State and Virginia Tech lost impact starters in the secondary and elsewhere. Virginia Tech lost their best offensive lineman to LSU, lost two of their best offensive linemen, I believe. So, these teams have really taken a beating in the portal. The talent gap should be there, but that doesn't mean you're going to win. These are physical football teams, and in the case of Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh, you're talking about cold, challenging environments.
So you have bye weeks in week 5 and 7. For those of you just joining us now, that's one of the weirder parts of the schedule here is you have a bye week in week 5 at Florida State week 6, and then another bye week in week 7 before you have Louisville on Friday, October 17th. And you don't leave the state of Florida until November when you go to Dallas to play at SMU on November 1st.
Yep. So I'm just going through here. Virginia Tech, because I've been talking about the guys they lost, and I want to be more specific in what I'm talking about. So in terms of names going out the door, right? These are outgoing transfers that are impactful. You're talking about Mansour Delane, a top corner, a 91 rated transfer corner going to LSU, a guy with NFL potential. Braylon Moore, a very, very good interior offensive lineman, also going to LSU. That's a 4-star player in the portal. Xavier Chaplin, this is a big one, a 92 ranked offensive tackle. I saw one podcast speculate he's making $1 million in the portal. He goes from Virginia Tech to Auburn. And then Jalen Stroman, the safety. He's only a 3-star transfer because he's coming off an injury, but he was a very good player the year before. He goes to Notre Dame. So those are 4 impact guys out the door, 2 defensive backs and 2 offensive linemen for Virginia Tech. You also lost your running back Tootin, who's at the Senior Bowl now, who was very impactful, as we saw at the University of Miami when he busted that big run against us. So, as much as the environment will be challenging, these are games Miami has to win. They just have to win. The SEC, the ACC in general, is going in the other direction. Miami has to win these games. NC State, you're losing Tamarcus Cooley, another cornerback, to LSU. Bishop Fitzgerald, a safety, to Southern California. Brandon Sissy, corner, going to South Carolina. Concepcion, we even talked about him, going from NC State to Texas A&M. Devin Boykin, a hard-hitting safety, great tackling safety, from NC State to Indiana. These are starters, man, out the door. You got to win these games. I don't care how cold it is. You got to win.
So we've got almost 3,000 on with us live, man. Appreciate everyone who's been on with us here as we've gone through Miami Hurricanes 2025 schedule. If you're just joining us, we went week by week here as it was announced on the ACC Network show here. And of course, again, just going through it, Miami opens with Notre Dame week 1. You have Bethune-Cookman coming to Hard Rock week 2. Week 3, USF comes to Hard Rock. as Miami went up to Tampa last year. D, you and I were both at that game. Florida comes to town here. Again, Miami went up to Gainesville last year. Then you have the bye week at Florida State. Bye week again. Louisville on a Friday night, which could be a really cool atmosphere at Hard Rock. Stanford at home the following Saturday. At SMU, Syracuse at home, NC State Senior Day on November 15th, a bit of an earlier Senior Day there. And then you go at Virginia Tech and at Pitt to round out the schedule here. So should be interesting. Big year.
Huge. And look, Miami's going to be a preseason top 10, top 15 type of team, depending on how certain things shake out. It's going to be spotlight from day one against the team that was in the championship the year before. It's going to be a preseason top 5 team in Notre Dame. Florida team, which is getting a lot of hype, which I hope the media hype continues to escalate, because what was the Vegas over under 6.5?
Yeah, for Florida. Yep.
And I'm seeing them in preseason top 10s. So I like that combination, right? That's a good mix between, high media esteem and maybe less credibility with the gamblers. I would side with the gamblers for Florida, but look, they can beat you, certainly. And their quarterback is a talent, man. I'm gonna say I'm a Lagway total believer, but I mean, the guy doesn't stink, man. He's got a ton of ability. You could see him in the first round of the draft with how big he is, his arm strength. He seems to have a good head on his shoulders. So, those are games that you can really establish your program early, similar to the way Miami did against Florida this year, and say that we're a national team. We could play with anybody. And then as you get into the ACC, it's about not losing games you should win, which is easier said than done. We've been saying it for 20 years. But, man, every single year the ACC gets worse. I'm looking at all these teams. Florida State is a team I would say is better, hard to be worse, but they're not Florida State. Louisville, they're about what they are. Stanford, they're down. SMU, I believe, will be worse. No Elijah Roberts, no Jafari Harvey, no Jared Harrison Hunt. Those are 3 guys that were very, very impactful. No Brashard Smith as a Senior Bowl running back. They'll replace certain other positions, but I do think they lost quite a bit, and they're not going to sneak up on anybody. And again, at that point, Miami would have played USF and Florida State, 2 fast-paced offenses. It shouldn't be something crazy to them. Syracuse without Kyle McCord, now Rondé Gadsden, Meeks, they should take a step back on paper. LaQuint Allen, a running back who's going to the Senior Bowl. Fadil Diggs, their best pass rusher. They lose a lot. And look, every college football, everybody loses a lot. But it's about the talent coming in to replace these guys. And in the ACC, they're not recruiting very well as a conference, and the portal hauls have not been good. You're losing more in the portal that you're getting. If you're NC State, you lost a ton in the portal. You didn't really get much in the portal. If you're Virginia Tech, you lost a ton in the portal. We just went over it. They didn't get that much in the portal. Pitt, neutral. So these are games you have to win. You have 2 paths. One is show out in the out of conference and build your resume. The other one is win the ACC. It's going to be a hard schedule, but both paths get you to the 12-team playoff. This is not, 2000 where you had to get the BCS. It's not even 2020 where you had to be one of the top 4 teams. There's 12 teams, 2 clear paths. It's not going to be easy, but there's enough to get it done.
305 Shaman asking which games will we not be favored in. I think they're already, like I mentioned, I think 2.5-point underdogs early on against Notre Dame. So that's one right there. Depending on how the season goes, SMU might be a toss-up type game.
Florida, but I mean, it depends on how the rest of the season goes. I think before the season, our over-under win total is 9.5. Florida's a 6.5. Florida's in the easier conference, but obviously this game factors into those totals, the Miami-Florida game. So, I think that would probably be a game Miami's favored in as we sit here today. SMU really loses a lot, guys. I mean, you look at their defensive line. They're not a school that's recruiting waves of D linemen, right? Robertson, Hunter in the Shrine Bowl. Harvey's very productive. Smith's in the Senior Bowl. Brashard Smith. Those guys don't just get replaced. Their quarterback had a good year. He really struggled in the playoff. You wonder how much that carries over. Their offensive line loses a lot. and they don't really have that much to replace him with. Look at the guys they brought in: Zion Nelson, TVD, major injury risk. I do think Chris Johnson is going to be good for them. I'm a Chris Johnson believer. I think it's going to click for him eventually. It's a good fit. But a game Miami should win, and an offense Miami should be prepared for after playing two of the fastest offenses in the country before.
Yep, without a doubt. And we're looks like about to surpass 3,000. So appreciate everyone who's been supporting this stream, man. Great numbers on a Monday night here.
Like and subscribe. Appreciate everybody. Yeah, last 2 games away. This is good. That part of it is weird. The home roads split, the timing of the buys is just kind of a weird schedule. But you do have a lot of home games, and you don't play Clemson, which is going to be the best team in the ACC. So it's not all bad news for the Canes. And I think the non-conference, truthfully, with the new format, is an opportunity more so than a burden. Plus, it gets you ready for conference play, certainly.
Without a doubt. Anything else, D?
Remember to shop at the Miami Hurricane team store, MiamiHTS.com. You get 20% off. Use promo code INSIGHT20. You get 20% off your first item. You go in the store next to the Thesis Hotel right across the street from campus. You can go online, INSIGHT20. You'll get your 20% off. Direct retail. Look at that jacket, man. Some of the best stuff to get you ready for the winter, which is already raging, quite frankly. But get you going with the hoodies, the jackets, her. You got youth Cam Ward jerseys for kids that didn't get it for Christmas and they're still asking you about it. You can get that one. They can wear it on draft day when he's hopefully the first overall pick of the draft. And then the classic bomber jacket. Hard to beat that one. Insight 20% off your first item. Yeah, no coach Bill Belichick this year. I wish we did, based on, I don't know. They got a quarterback situation that they got to work through. There's no Sam Howell or Drake May there right now.
Right. Let's see here if there's any other comments or questions to get to.
Yeah, most at the end when it's cold on the away games from GOK and Luck. Yeah, I mean, they got to play well in the cold. I think the offense should be fine because your run blocking should be a strength of this team. Your ability to run, if Fletcher and Lyle stay healthy, your ability to run is going to be one of your team's strengths. You don't need to air it out, but we'll see how it goes defensively. There's a lot to prove. Heatherman, I'm sure, is not worried about the cold. I'm not sure about the players.
Canes Cats Heat 305 has been asking FSU and Florida in back-to-back games. When's the last time that's happened? I will look into that for you. But D, I don't know if you can think of it off the top of your head.
No chance. I had no clue. No clue.
All right. Well, we'll be back. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, probably closer to our regularly scheduled time. Of course, today we had this 9 p.m. reveal, so we did not go live in the middle of the day as we usually do. But you guys definitely brought it for us tonight. Appreciate the support. Over 3,000 on this live. You guys were awesome, and it's exciting to finally get this schedule, and we'll be breaking it all down throughout the off season, but definitely some weird things to look at and present some unique challenges. But listen, it's the Canes. You knew it wasn't going to be a perfect schedule.
Hey, look, we've had easy schedules, hard schedules. 2 decades haven't gotten it done. This team just needs to be able to execute, and it's the only way. Winning the ACC in the cold or finishing strong in November in the cold will, exercise a lot of demons. Let's put it that way.
Those demons need exercising, that's for sure.
Yes, sir. We'll see you out there. I just got a wedding that got moved to the bye week that I had to go to, so I'll be at FSU. We'll be out there in the mix. Canes Insight will be rolling strong every single day, all the way through the summer to the season.
Go Canes. See you guys tomorrow.
Go Canes.